Season 4 of Dragonflight seems to be offering a lot, which is great for what some are calling the worst ending to an expansion ever. Hey, it's Soul, and this is Warcraft Weekly, your weekend copium. Hit the like button, subscribe for more WoW coverage, and catch me live on Twitch. 10.2.6 has turned out to be a kind of a weird patch thanks to some polarizing viewpoints. It included Plunderstorm, a feature that not everyone was into, to the point where some insist that it shouldn't be considered part of any patch, as if it should be erased from World of Warcraft canon. Which makes me wonder just how do PvPers feel when there's a patch and there's like nothing for them, which is like every patch. Some are fine with it because they've enjoyed Plunderstorm, or maybe they didn't, but they know that there's more on the way with Season 4 and 10.2.7, but you know, maybe it's also the worst because Season 4 and 10.2.7, they're not here yet, and it's even worser because Season 4 and 10.2.7, it's not like a new raid or new/old dungeons, among other arguments that we're going to touch on. Oh, and there's PvP stuff too. You see how easy it is to forget about that? Maybe in hindsight, Plunderstorm should have launched the same day as Season 4 of Dragonflight, whenever that's going to be. That would have meant that today, we would still be in the dark about what the hell's up with this damn flag. Like, where's the content? Where's the season? Where's the alpha? But the point would be that everything launches at once, so most everyone's got a little something to enjoy. Before we get thrown off by inconvenient facts or my ridiculous takes, I want to say this now. I invite you to share your own thoughts on what you think the so-called lull of the WoW expansion, like what should it be like? Hold on to that though, and let's talk facts. Season 3 of Dragonflight began the week of November 14th, and many are suggesting 9 to 10 months until the launch of the War Within expansion. The WoW team's plans included the following: 10.2.5, 10.2.6, and a 10.2.7, not including the 11.0 pre-patch, which I'm guessing is going to be like a month or so long. To give that feel of progression, there's also going to be a Season 4, a last hurrah of Dragonflight, and we're going to get into the details on that in just a little bit. I'm just setting up a comparison of what we're getting compared to what we've had before. So let's go backwards. Season 3 of Shadowlands started March of 2022, with only 8 months between that and the start of Dragonflight. During that 8-month period, we basically got 2 more patches, a 9.2.5 and a 9.2.7, which included very few story updates, and our first bonus season. It was a redo of the old raids with a twist, along with item level increases and faster ways to gear with respect to an end of expansion season that is shorter than the normal. Something that was kind of overlooked though, outdoor world content, which did not get the season treatment. You could say that they were pretty much forgotten and left to kind of keep plugging away at Zereth Mortis while the big 3 players enjoyed the usual power loops, and again, there were little to no story updates. Battle for Azeroth was a story told in 4 raid seasons and had a lull that started January of 2020 with an 11-month gap before Shadowlands launch. Within those 11 months was basically nothing. There was like a quality of life change by adding a corruption vendor. Ooh, and there were some leveling events like holidays and stuff, and that was about it. I mean, 2020 was just a very weird and different year, but we got what we got. Let's keep going back and visit Legion, which was also told in 4 parts. The last raid of that launched November 2017, while Battle for Azeroth launched August of 2018. Now, what did we get over the course of that 9-month long tier? We got a 7.3.5 patch, which didn't include all that much. I mean, well, to their credit, the legendary vendor, that turned out to be a much needed quality of life fix. There was level scaling worldwide for those who care about leveling lots of characters. We got Old World Time Walking, at least when Wrath Time Walking was up, and this was when the gap between Time Walking weeks was a bit wider. We did get a little bit of new story thanks to some new Silithus quests, and we got a battleground. We got the Seething Shore. By today's standards, that might not even count as content anymore. And then what happened back in Warlords? The final raid was June 2016, 14 months until Legion, and between that, nothing. And then Mists of Pandaria, the final raid was September of 2013, 14 months of nothing. Now with these comparisons, we can make some pretty easy observations, like the lull is shorter than it was 10 years ago. Woohoo! I mean, yeah, cool, that's a relief, because No matter how you spin it, a year without updates and communication, it kind of speaks for itself. Going through that really sucks. Legion and Battle for Azeroth might have had 4-part expansions, but they still had pretty lengthy waits until the next expansion. Now, there's a debate to be had on that specific point. Allegedly, the development of Legion involved both the cannibalizing of Warlord's development for Legion's launch and delaying work on Battle for Azeroth as Legion was trying to close out. Now, even with that in mind, in my opinion, having so little to string us along at the end of an expansion, it just makes for a very inconsistent experience. Shadowlands Season 4 was a reflection of what the WoW team has learned, which was, hey, you know what, maybe we should give players something more substantial than just a few quality of life updates. In hindsight, it turned out pretty well, especially for the kinds of players who usually just wait until the end of an expansion to actually come back. Y'all might have heard this mindset before. You know, the kind of player that comes back after all the time gating is gone and the systems are fixed and so on and so forth. Those kinds of players, they were in for a treat because the raids that they missed, hey, they could actually do them now because people were running them, because they were rotating in and out. And of course, the likes of Covenant and making legendaries, like all that stuff was made to be more accessible. The big takeaway is that the lull was still there, but the team was able to invest minimal work into a season-like experience. Now, Dragonflight's post-Season 3 experience is trying to deliver the same cadence that it's been giving us throughout the entire expansion, minus, of course, like a brand new raid. From small features like the Azerothian archives to big foundational shifts like follower dungeons and dragon riding worldwide. We're getting 3 patches full of stuff, and we're getting a pretty full looking season. And don't worry, we're going to get to the specifics on that in just a bit, but should we have more? Could we have more? There's a lot of chatter on social media that Season 4 is dead on arrival because we should have gotten a new raid and a zone and a full-on story to close out Dragonflight better. But I question whether that would have been reasonable or possible. Now, I'm no developer and the world's better for it, but I look at this roadmap and I ask myself, okay, like, what if we sacrifice some stuff here on the roadmap to make a raid happen for Season 4? Like, would that work? Could we even make proper measurements like that, as if 2 super blooms and a follower dungeon equals a raid? And even then, we would probably still end up in the same boat with a 9 to 11 month long season before the next expansion. Like, would that still be a thing? The recent data that we've got from Blizzard includes classic information, so it doesn't fully illustrate the numbers in a modern WoW expansion cycle, but I think I can safely claim that more people play the first part of an expansion than the last one. So how much effort should go into that final patch or a season, as opposed to getting the next expansion out that arguably more people want to see? But maybe I'm focusing a little bit too much on what I think is good for development, and instead I should just be a player and ask myself, what do I want? Now, I definitely want something to look forward to in World of Warcraft. So far, 10.2.6 is a kind of gap in questing and story. That's a bad thing, but there is more ahead within the season with the following patch. And I like that we're having this short revisit to the earlier raids and dungeons as well. I'm not a career dungeon person, so I'm not really burned out, and the 3 raids, they don't immediately become irrelevant after the original season's over. We can get a little bit more out of it before moving on. And most important, it's just better than nothing. And it's better than how Shadowlands is handling it, at least I think. Maybe at the end of War Within, we'll see lessons learned again. Maybe we won't see a recycling of raids and we'll just kind of jump into the next expansion. But for now, let's talk more about what is going to happen in Season 4 of Dragonflight. This week we learned a lot of what's happening in the upcoming season, and while we still don't know everything, it's turning out to be pretty exciting stuff. I'll let you be the judge though, of course, so let's get right into it, but keep in mind that this information is incomplete and stuff can change. Season 4 is going to be a series of rotations through Dragonflight content. According to a blog post, there's a bi-weekly rotation where raid and outdoor content will be called Awakened. That's the Shadowlands equivalent of Fated. There are 3 rotations: a Dragon Isles rotation, which covers the 5 original zones and the Vault of the Incarnate raid. After 2 weeks, it's time for Azerelite Caverns and Aberrus to be awakened, and then finally the Emerald Dream and Amirdrasil, and then we loop it back. Technically, the blog says bi-weekly, which can mean either every other week or twice a week, but I'm gonna safely guess that they do mean every other week because, dude, like, imagine having the raid and zone rotation change as if they were like, you know, world quest rotations. You know, and what happens with lockouts? Like, what about those teams who play Fridays and Saturdays normally? This sort of schedule kind of fits too. Like, if the raid rotates every 2 weeks and there are 3 raids, if Season 4 were to start sometime in like mid-April or so, 2 full Awakened rotations brings us to mid-July, which puts us in striking distance for the War Within pre-patch and its launch, while still following this whole 8 to 10 week patch rotation throughout all of Dragonflight. It also means that we're going to go through like about 3 months of this raid rotation before the pre-patch, when those rotations finally go away. But anyway, when a rotation is active, the raid's juiced up with updated rewards, and I'm going to get more into that in just a little bit. And there's a special weekly quest to do activities related to the rotation. So, for example, if it's the Emerald Dream rotation, you need to do the Super Bloom, you need to plant some seeds, and collect some Dream Surge Coalescence from Dream Surges. Those quests will give sparks for crafting Season 4 items and champion gear. Yeah, champion gear. So these quests aren't playing around. Now, when a zone isn't in an awakened state, it's still Season 4, so drops from activities are still getting an item level bump, albeit with some changes. For example, trinkets from time rifts have actually been demoted from Adventurer class down to Explorer class. On the flip side though, buying these trinkets use the same currency as last season's, so if this is set in stone, I would advise people to consider saving a few tokens now for the upcoming season, and then you can maybe get some higher level trinkets to start with pretty easily. I would want to double check this with Dream Surge gear, but the PTR is down, because from the looks of it, it seems like the zone activities can give veteran gear while they're awakened and explore when they're not. So I'm not sure, I'm just thinking out loud here and based on my observations. Dungeons are getting a big overhaul, with the dungeons themselves getting a lot of changes, mostly with mechanical nerfs, but also changes to difficulty and rewards. Normal dungeons are basically staying the same, so go ahead and queue up with your followers, do whatever you like. Heroic dungeons will have their numbers tuned to be as difficult as Mythic 0 dungeons as they are now. Now that translates to basically an item level bump, but with how easy it is to gear in this season, I think this is going to be pretty quickly overlooked. Mythic dungeons are going to get a bit more juiced up though. Numbers wise, think of Mythic dungeons in Season 4 hitting as hard as the Dawn of the Infinites dungeon, which doesn't look like it's going to be part of the Mythic Plus season. Instead, it's going to be taken a notch even higher and will award at least 1 piece of hero gear at the end. Mechanics are staying the same as the current Mythic, so Ruby Life Pools is still Ruby Life Pools. It's just going to hit harder, and mobs are going to be a little bit spongier until you get some more gear. And completing Mythic Zeros will credit you towards hero gear from the Great Vault the following week, which makes completing even one of them a week very, very worthwhile. Meanwhile, Mythic Plus dungeons are getting a number squish that works heavily in favor for people who are just looking for gear, and I'm just gonna cut straight to the point. Running a Mythic 6 or higher will get you Aspect Crests, even though you only have 2 affixes active. Running a level 8 or higher is gonna get you Myth gear from the Vault, and again, there are still only 2 affixes active. It's when you're running 10s or higher when that 3rd affix finally kicks in, which, at least to me, it clearly separates career dungeon people from the folks who are just kind of in here for the gear. Meanwhile, raids are going to get put under this Awakened rotation. Again, it looks like it's going to rotate every 2 weeks, and most likely in the order of appearance. Completing all 3 raids on their difficulties will get you things like a mount, a title, and teleports. So far, it doesn't look like there's going to be much done to the raids themselves, at least so far, just kind of keep an eye out, but no doubt we're going to see a good bit of tuning once the season starts, likely in favor of making the raid easier to clear. That was mostly their approach during Shadowlands, so I'm guessing the same thing here. Personally, I think it'd be enough if they just brought back the Onyx Amulets, updated it, and unleashed its full glory. Season 4 kind of spins around gear that can be directly purchased from a vendor with special currency. It's called an antique bronze bullion. How and how much of it we can get, it's not yet known, only that it's earned from both PvE and PvP activities. We'll trade them to vendors who sell the trinkets, weapons, and other special gear from the 3 raids, even an item that upgrades the Evoker and the Strength Legendary. Unlike Dinar in Season 4 of Shadowlands, bullion doesn't appear to have a hard cap of any amount, at least not yet. This is kind of backed up by the fact that there's another vendor who doesn't sell player power, but more like weapon appearances from all the raids in Dragonflight at every difficulty. They also sell the Slime Cat mount, which was exclusive to completing all the Season 4 raids back in Shadowlands. Now, all of this costs bullion, So while again, I don't have specifics, I do feel a bit reassured that this bullion is something to be farmed in the long term so we can get the gear that we want and have some to spare for cosmetics. My big hope is that this bullion is treated kind of like a season currency, that we can earn like maybe 2 on the first week, and then each week the cap goes up, by 1 or something like that, meaning a new piece of gear every 2 weeks. Meanwhile, alts can easily catch up, just like we can catch up with like those sparks of whatever the heck season it is. The gear is upgradable and on a special upgrade track called Awakened. It even respects the very rare gear from final bosses that have a higher than mythic item level. Now I'm gonna guess that the activities that you do for bullion will also score you whatever it is that lets you upgrade this particular gear. We just don't know what levels of accessibility are happening here. Like, can I use the same kind of item to bring it all the way from like, rank 1 to max? Is it going to use Whelpling, Drake, Worm, or Aspects, as in, are upgrades going to be kind of sort of skill gated? I'm not sure. So I mean, if anything, I'm just excited to pick these up at all. I feel like Season 4 specifically is trying to sell itself as something that's, like fun to take part in, but it stopped short of being something that's going to get players to jump back in, and that's intentional. Although it sounds weird for me to say it like that, right? Like, at first we would think that, hey, the devs want us to come back because more players means good game, but unlike Legion or Battle for Azeroth or Shadowlands, there wasn't like this really expansion long needed fix in Dragonflight that really stuck out. Like the whole, hey, the game is playable now, like that didn't quite happen this time around. It's more like, okay, hey, the game is like fully opened up. Also, there is such a thing as overselling, the way I see it, as in trying to force something to be compelling when it's not meant to be. We know what this sort of season means for the game, and we can decide to partake in it or not. We don't know what's in store for 10.2.7 though. That's what I'd say is going to be like the thing that's going to, maybe get us to come back and check in for a quick peek, or if nothing else, it'll keep folks like me who were already here entertained. That's going to be the show, and I want to give a very special shout out to Zaryu, to TSM, and to Jersey Mikes. The other day, their team dropped $1,000 into the channel as a donation, and on top of that, 3 million gold in WoW Gold. So like, it was super amazing. I was very speechless and flustered, and I'm still grateful. So a ton of thanks to them, and also thanks to chat. I fell on the idea of what to do to kind of pay it forward. So what I did was I turned that 3 million gold into BattleNet balance, and the plan is to buy up a bunch of in-game goodies while they're on sale, and then I'll just give them away to the folks over on Twitch every now and then. So what you want to do is make sure that you're following this channel and also the Twitch channel and my other socials too, so that way you know when I'm doing these sorts of giveaways. It's going to be dependent on what happens to go on sale. Like right now, there are a few items right now that are on discount, so I'm going to pick some of those up, and then I'm going to wait for like the next sale and repeat this process until I'm like WoW broke. And this could be pretty fun. I do want to thank the incredible chat for being very welcoming during the drops promotion, to folks who rated the channel, to our beloved patrons, and of course to you viewer. You made it to the end, so if you don't mind, hit the like button, subscribe for more WoW coverage, catch me live, and I'll catch you later. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.